Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of H.J. Res. 72, making continuing appropriations for veterans' benefits for the fiscal year 2014, which was received from the House. I ask further consent that the measure be read 3 times and passed, and that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Is there objection?
Mr. President.
Senator from Washington.
Mr. President, reserving the right to object. The junior senator from Texas has offered a unanimous consent that we take care of veterans in this shutdown of government. Mr. President, I would note that there is no senator or member of Congress here who doesn't care deeply about making sure that our veterans are taken care of, including this senator from the state of Washington. As the presiding officer knows and our colleagues know, I have spoken often of my own father, who was a World War II veteran, who spent most of his life in a wheelchair, earned a Purple Heart. I know the sacrifices that our veterans make. As chair of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee before this, I fought hard to make sure every veteran had what they needed, that we said more than just thank you, but we provided them for what they need. So I know our veterans well. And what I do know about our veterans, Mr. President, is that they, above everyone else, are selfless. They went to serve our country and said, we will take care of the rest of you at our own personal sacrifice. They would be the last to come before us and say, take care of me before everyone else. They would say to us, take care of our fellow men and leave no one behind. So, Mr. President, I am going to ask that the senator modify his request and do what our military has always asked us to, their fellow men to do, and leave no one behind. A request that will assure that everyone who fights for our country, takes care of our country, works for our country in emergencies, depends on our country to make sure that they have the opportunity every one of us had here, is able to have that opportunity, and they're not held hostage to a government shutdown, so that we can get back to work and solve our country's problems. We need to end this Tea Party shutdown, and we can do it with the request that I will ask right now. So I have a modification to suggest to the junior senator from Texas request. I ask consent that his request be modified as follows: that an amendment, which is at the desk, be agreed to, that the joint resolution as amended then be read a 3rd time and passed, and the motions to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate. This amendment is the text that has passed the Senate and is a clean, continuing resolution for the entire government, and is something that is already over in the House and reportedly has now the support of the majority of the members of the House of Representatives.
Does the senator from Texas so modify his request?
Reserving the right to object, I thank my friend from Washington State. I note that she talked about leaving no man or woman behind. And I would note that the continuing resolution that the House has passed to fully fund the Veterans Administration treats our veterans the same way the House and Senate have already treated active duty military. Just a few days ago, this body unanimously passed a bill that said the men and women of the military would be paid. Unfortunately, it seems to be the position of the majority in this body that veterans should be treated not as well as our active duty military, and in particular, that the full funding of the VA should be held hostage to every other priority that the Democrats in this chamber must have. I understand the Democrats in this chamber are committed to Obamacare with all of their heart, might, and soul. But the veterans of this nation should not be held hostage to that commitment. It is likely, given the majority's refusal to negotiate, refusal to compromise, refusal even to talk to find a middle ground, it is likely that this shutdown instigated by the Democratic majority will continue for some time. And during that time, we ought to be able to find common ground that at the very minimum, our veterans shouldn't pay the price. If moments from now, my friend from Washington simply does not object, by the end of the day, the VA will be fully funded. If, as we all expect, she does object, if she repeats the objection that her majority leader and her party has made throughout the course of this week, then much of the VA will remain shut down because of that objection. So she has asked if we can reopen the entire federal government, and if she doesn't get if The request is not granted to give every single priority in the federal government that the majority party wants, that the VA will remain without sufficient funds. I find that highly objectionable, and I object.